So I'm going to go through and show you a possible way you could start this. Now, don't use this one as the only way to do it. I'm just trying to give you kind of my method and my thoughts. So with this, I have not actually masked out the items, and I've not included all the items in here, but I just want to go through kind of the basics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recommend starting with like your 4 to 5 major things you want to have people focus on when they look at this collage. So that could be different for each person. So I'm going to go ahead and throw one in here for North Carolina to represent born. Going to put Michael Jordan in to represent value, determination and working through struggle, but still being successful. Another goal, maybe to graduate college. That's going to represent North Carolina. And another goal would be to learn how to play guitar. And then another value is really valuing human rights and things that are important to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide all of these, and I'm going to start first with masking this piece. So one of the things that I can do with this is when I'm trying to figure out which selection tool to use, I'm looking at what the major shape is, and the major shape on this is rectangular. So this one's going to be pretty easy. But I want to also include these little legs. So instead of using just the rectangle marquee, I'm going to grab the polygonal lasso with a polygonal. Never knew the right pronunciation for that. I'm going to hold down the shift key, or if you're using Cameo, you're going to need to just press that button right up there in the options. That's going to add that button there, subtracts. So since these are straight lines, I'm just going to go through, and I missed a little bit of an edge there, but I'm not too worried about that. And double click. So now that's set. So I'm going to hit mask. I did it on the wrong layer. Let me go over here, get up here to value, and then hit mask. All right. Now I'm going to go to this one. This one's got black on the outside. So when I'm looking at this, I'm seeing something that has a solid color. So I want to select the opposite of what I want to keep. That did a pretty good job. So that did a really good job. All right, excellent. I'll leave it from there. So now what I can do is I can choose mask, but you'll notice what happened with the mask is it masked out everything but what I wanted, or it masked out everything opposite. So on the mask itself, I can press Control I or Command I if you're on a Mac, or you can go to Select, and you should be able to, oh gosh, I'm always forgetting where the thing is at in here because I'm so used to reversing the selection or inverting it. So what you can do is talk to me individually, and I'll see if I can figure that out just for sake of speed. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and reverse the color by pressing Control I. And then I got rid of the mask edge. Awesome. So that one's done. Let me grab this guy. So looking at this, there's some good, strong differences between here. I'm going to try on this. I'm going to try to select subject and let Photoshop try to figure out what it thinks I want. Since it's got pretty sharp edges along here, it might do a decent job. Actually, that's doing a pretty good job. It missed some of his jersey, and it missed getting rid of this middle portion. That's okay for now. So this is what I usually do when I'm masking, is I just go through and add, and I will come up here. You can use the subtract with the quick select, or you can hold down the Alt key. Notice how the plus changes to a minus. Go inside of there. Still not perfect. Oops, still not perfect. That's okay. That's one of the things with doing these kinds of selections. I had you do them all separately just to get some practice with it. Also to try to compensate for the fact that the Cameo version seems to crash if you have too many things open. So I wanted to make sure that I was trying to make this a little less stressful for you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hit mask. It's done. I don't like these edges, so I would end up going in and cleaning up these edges. I also missed the finger, the little pad, so I'm just going to go back in on the mask and clean that part up. And it ended up grabbing a little too much here. Whoops, let me flip-flop my color. Grabbed a little too much. Now here's a way, if you've got this weird black outline, you can get rid of stuff. So let me show you a little trick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control or Command on the Mac, and I'm going to click on the mask so it selects the whole thing. So now that I've made that selection, what I want to do is I want to cut the selection. I want to move the selection slightly inside. Since there's a little bit of a black line around the whole thing, if I go to Select, Modify, and Contract, that will bring up a dialog box to ask me how many pixels do I want to contract. I don't know with this, so I'm going to try and see if 3 is going to work. Oh, 3 is way too much. So I'm going to undo. I'm going to go Select, Modify, Contract. I'm going to try just 1. There we go. That's better. So that's cut inside. So what I want to do now is I want to reverse the selection. So I'm going to go to Select, and I'm going to go to Inverse. Now, it doesn't look like anything happened, but here's the deal. What I just did is I made a selection of the entire object. Then I shrunk or contracted the selection. So it went inside of the lines. By reversing the selection or inverting it, what that's going to do is it's going to protect this middle portion. But now, whoops, flip the color around. Now I can paint around the outside and see what's happening is it's eating away at that little bit of the black line that was showing up. So it basically is, instead of having it perfectly at the edge, what it's doing is it's allowing me to get rid of that little exterior portion. So I'm slightly making him a little bit smaller. So it's not perfect, and there's still some other little pieces I would clean up, but for now, I think that's good enough. So when you look at the actual mask, there it is. The thing that's useful when you use that Alt is I can see where I missed filling this part in. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. I'm going to hold down my Shift key, highlight that little guy, come over here. The reason for that is I was using a really soft edge brush and I wouldn't have noticed. But once I have those areas selected, I can take my brush with white and just fill those in. So now, yeah, that looks better. Still a couple little pieces, but I'm not too worried about that for now. It'll be noticeable once I put a background on if I need to go back in and make adjustments. All right, last one I'm going to do, because I'm not going to do this entire thing, but I want to show you how you can kind of tuck things in. So the first idea was just basically figuring out what are those 5 or 6, actually 4 to 6 major things you want us to see. So you can see here, I'm going to try the select subject and see what happens. I'm not sure how good of a job it's going to do, but give it a shot. We can always hit undo. Wow, dang, that actually did a pretty decent job. All right, so now I'm going to go in, and it missed some areas, but it actually found a pretty good amount of what I was looking for. So now I'm going to switch to my lasso. The reason I'm switching to my lasso is I like doing this in smaller pieces. So I'm using the subtract option by holding down my Alt or Option key. You can always do it by clicking that. And I'm going to go inside here. Once again, with these, I'm not worried about it being perfect at this point because I can always go back and make adjustments later. All right, I'm going to hold down my Shift key to add. Good. Keeping my Windows key by mistake. I'm going to hold down my Alt key, work my way around there. This is one of the reasons why I really like having a mouse. I know a lot of you are used to using trackpads and stuff, but having a mouse gives you much more fine-tuned control. Now, notice I'm doing it in smaller pieces. I'm not really going around and doing a really long tracing. Although I can, it does take a pretty steady hand to be able to do that. All right, so I've got some areas in here that I would want to get rid of eventually, but for now, not going to worry about it. All right, so once I've got the basics of that done, then I can go here. All right, excellent. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this color range to try to get rid of this area but leave the net. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the thumbnail of Michael Jordan. I'm going to go to Select, Color Range. I'm going to click inside of this black area. The lower the fuzziness, the less it grabs. The more it goes, it starts to grab a ton of color. So what I'm really looking at is just that area right there, because it's going to be this area. So I'm using the regular eyedropper. And I'm just going to try to pull this up and play around a little bit, hit OK. Actually, that did pretty good. All right. So now I'm going to switch back over to the mask. That's the most important part. Make sure you go to the mask. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint with black. And I got rid of it. Deselect by pressing Command or Control D. If you don't have that, if you're using Cameo, just switch to one of the other tools and just like the lasso and just click once and it'll deselect. There's another way to do it. I just don't know offhand where it's at in the keyboard because I don't use that. I use the keyboard shortcuts. All right. So now that was a little long to do, but now that that's all masked out, I'm going to record a second video that's going to show you how I would start maybe tucking stuff inside of the state. Now, remember, you're not required to tuck this into the state. I'm just showing you a different way how I would try to emphasize things.